You ever find out your mom doesn't love you not by words, but by what she packs in her car? Mine fit my little sister, her dog, 3 suitcases, and a plant. There just wasn't room for me. I was 13 when she left. She kissed my forehead like she was heading to work. Told me I was too much to handle emotionally and that Grandma's house would be better for my sensitive nature. I stood there on the porch in my fuzzy unicorn socks, watching the taillights disappear down the driveway with my throat too tight to call out. My name is Riley. I'm 20 now, and this story has haunted every year of my life since that moment. I wasn't a problem child. I didn't set things on fire or scream at strangers in the supermarket. I just cried sometimes. I asked too many questions. I needed hugs. Apparently that made me emotionally taxing. I remember the way my mom used to pinch the bridge of her nose whenever I started tearing up. The way her voice changed from motherly to cold. God, Riley, not everything is a meltdown. But when my sister Emma threw a tantrum and broke 3 plates over not getting chicken nuggets, Mom just laughed and scooped her up like it was adorable. I lived with Grandma after that. Nana June. She smelled like mothballs and cinnamon. Her knees cracked when she moved, and she always let me eat dessert before dinner. She wasn't perfect, her TV volume could shatter glass, but she saw me. She called me her little soul with too much feeling and somehow made that sound like a blessing. Mom never came back for me. She called on holidays sometimes, asked if I was still writing my stories, and then spent 30 minutes gushing about Emma's cheer routines and spelling bee wins. She forgot my 16th birthday. Said it slipped her mind because she had a migraine. I told myself I was over it. I buried it under good grades, under polite smiles, and I'm fine-s. But I wasn't. I was cracked. Quietly. Deeply. Things came to a head last Thanksgiving. Mom invited me for the first time in years. Said it was time to reunite. That Emma wanted to see me. I was hesitant, but I said yes. Maybe I was stupid. Maybe I wanted to believe people changed. I showed up in my best sweater. Bought a gift for Em, an old copy of The Secret Garden, annotated by me with notes in the margins. She loved books when we were little. When I got there, no one answered the door for a full 2 minutes. Then Mom opened it, frowning like I was early. I wasn't. I was on time. Emma barely looked up from her phone when I walked in. There was no seat for me at the table. Literally. 7 chairs. I stood there like an idiot with my casserole, while Mom blinked at me and said, "Oh, we weren't sure you were actually coming." I ate in the living room with a plate on my lap. Alone. While my family toasted in the dining room. And when I asked Emma to open her gift, she gave it a half smile and mumbled, "Thanks," without even flipping through it. That night, I overheard Mom talking to Aunt Sandra in the kitchen. Her voice was low but bitter. "I can't deal with Riley's energy. She just brings the mood down. Emma's got such a bright future, I won't let Riley's baggage dim that." I left at midnight, numb. I didn't even say goodbye. I cried in the car so hard I had to pull over. That's when I posted my story online. I didn't name names. Just laid it out, how a parent can love one child and abandon another. How being too emotional is code for inconvenient. The post blew up overnight. Thousands of comments. Stories from others like me. Validation. Rage. Empathy. And then came her comment. Under a burner account, too obvious not to be her. You can't force a mother to love someone who drains her spirit. I made the healthiest choice for everyone involved. Be grateful. That was the last straw. I sent her a message. Just one line. You left me on the porch like a bag of trash. I'm done pretending we're family. She never responded. But Emma did. She texted me 2 days later. You made Mom cry. Happy now? I stared at that text for an hour. Not because I was shocked, but because it proved everything. Mom cries when she is hurt, not when she hurts others. It's been a year since then. I'm in therapy. I'm slowly learning that my feelings aren't poison, that my softness is strength, that family can be chosen. Nana June passed away 3 months ago. Her last words to me were, "You turned out golden, baby. No matter how they tried to dim you." I'm applying to grad school now, studying to become a child psychologist. Because no other kid should stand on a porch, heart in their hands, wondering what made them so unlovable. And no child should believe the lie that being sensitive is a sin. I'm not too much. I was never too much. I was just too real for people who preferred masks. And now I choose me. I wish that realization had come sooner. That it hadn't taken years of aching silence, canceled calls, and a mother who only saw me as a weight dragging behind her to finally say it aloud, I am enough. But healing isn't linear. It's not poetic. It's ugly. Some days I wake up with this hollow spot in my chest where I think love should have been. And sometimes I still hear her voice in my head, sharp, dismissive, cold. But every day I stay, I breathe, I try. That's resistance. That's survival. After Nana June died, I spent 2 weeks alone in the house we'd shared. I wandered room to room, touching furniture like it could anchor me. Her favorite coffee mug still sat by the sink. The smell of her lavender oil clung to her pillows. I couldn't bring myself to wash them. The hardest part wasn't losing her, it was realizing she was the only adult who had wanted me. That's what grief taught me. That love, real love, isn't shown in grand moments but in the quiet, consistent way someone chooses you. And she always did. Every single day. About a month after the funeral, I got a letter in the mail from a lawyer. It was from my mom. Well, technically from her estate lawyer. She hadn't died or anything. But apparently she had listed me as a secondary beneficiary to her life insurance. Not primary. Secondary. Meaning, if Emma can't take it, I guess Riley can. The letter also contained a single handwritten note. Riley, I didn't know how to be your mother. I don't know if I ever could have been. But I hope one day you'll understand that I did what I thought was best for both of us. Mom. I stared at it for a long time. She didn't even sign her name. No, love. No, I'm sorry. Just Mom, like it was still a role she deserved to claim. I threw the letter away. But I didn't throw away the ache. That stayed. I joined a support group after that. Not the kind where you sit in a circle and talk about addiction or grief, but a smaller, quieter space online for people estranged from family. At first I just lurked. Reading. Watching. Nodding. Then one night someone posted, "What would you say to the version of you who still thinks it was your fault?" I sat in the dark for 2 hours before I typed this. I'd say, it's not your fault they couldn't love you in the way you needed. Some people are empty and blame you for their hollowness. You weren't broken, you were just handed to someone who didn't know how to hold you. That post got over 3,000 likes. And that was the moment I knew I wasn't alone. Weeks passed. I kept writing. In journals, on blogs, in the margins of my textbooks. The pain I had swallowed for so long began to shape into something new voice. Then came the twist I never saw coming. Emma showed up. In person. It was a Saturday morning. I was in leggings and a sleep shirt, eating cereal straight from the box when I heard the knock. I thought it was my neighbor asking about my trash bins again. I opened the door and almost dropped the cereal. Emma looked older. Tired. Not in a wrinkled way, but like someone who had seen too much too soon. Her perfect curls were limp, and there was a bruise just barely peeking out under her sweater sleeve. We stared at each other for a long second. Then she whispered, I didn't know where else to go. She stayed on the couch that night. Said she had left Mom's place a week ago. That they'd been fighting more often and that Mom had started drinking again. She throws things now, Emma said softly. Last week it was a hairbrush. The week before it was a photo frame with your picture in it. My heart clenched. Why now? I asked. Why come to me? She looked at me like a child who'd lost her way. Because you always said she wasn't well. I thought you were bitter. But you were just right. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to wrap my arms around her and cry. Another part wanted to scream. Now she believed me? After all those years of silence? But I let her stay. Over the next few days we tiptoed around each other. Shared coffee. Shared silence. She confessed more how Mom had once told her I was damaged goods. How she'd threatened to cut off Emma's college fund if she ever tried to reach out to me. She made you the villain in every story, Emma said. I didn't realize I was being used as the golden child. I almost laughed. She didn't love either of us. She just needed someone to reflect back what she wanted to see. Emma cried that night. Curled up on my couch like we were kids again. I sat with her. I didn't know if we'd ever be close again, but for that moment, I let myself believe we could be something better than strangers. She ended up moving in with a friend from school. Said she needed to find herself outside of Mom. Outside of me too. And I understood. The healing wasn't perfect. We still argued. Still stumbled. But we were rebuilding on truth, not fantasy. And that mattered. The final crack in the old narrative came on my 21st birthday. I got a letter again. This time from Mom. In her handwriting. not a lawyer. It said, "You're probably expecting an apology. I don't have one. Not a real one. But I'm trying. Therapy has been hard. My therapist says I might have had postpartum depression that never got addressed. That I projected. That I failed you. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do hope that one day you'll remember something good about me." I sat with that letter for hours. And then I wrote my own. I remember the way you used to braid my hair before school. I remember the cinnamon rolls we made once in winter. The way you smiled when I got icing on my nose. I remember the lullabies. But I also remember the silence. The way you vanished from my life like I was disposable. The empty seat at every milestone. So I know I won't forget the good. But I also won't pretend the bad didn't shape me. You taught me to survive. Even if you didn't mean to. I never sent it. But it was the first time I didn't cry while writing to her. And that felt like peace. After that letter, something shifted in me. Not instantly, not like a movie where the music swells and the screen fades to black with a triumphant smile. It was quieter, smaller, a kind of internal exhale. I didn't forgive her. I didn't forget. But I started to release her. Not out of grace, but out of necessity. Holding on to her in my heart, the rejection, her absence, her indifference was like clutching glass shards and wondering why I kept bleeding. Every time I scrolled past pictures of mothers and daughters hugging on Instagram, or saw Mother's Day cards in grocery store aisles, I felt the wound rip open again. So I made a choice. I stopped looking back. I stopped following her on social media. I archived our photos. I even took the framed picture of her and Emma off my shelf, not out of rage, but because I deserved a space where my presence wasn't reduced to a footnote. I built that space. My apartment turned into something of a sanctuary. Mismatched throw pillows, sun-faded book covers, an overwatered fern named Otis that I kept alive purely out of spite. I filled the walls with prints I loved, no family portraits, no guilt-wrapped reminders. Just colors and poetry and shelves lined with every piece of myself that I used to tuck away. I wrote more. By then, my blog had grown. People started emailing me. One girl told me she printed out my post about emotional abandonment and gave it to her therapist. A man said he'd never had the words to explain what his father's silence did to him until he read mine. I cried a lot. Good tears. The kind that come from being seen. And then something wild happened. An indie publisher reached out. They'd seen my essays online, said my voice was unapologetically raw but deeply human, asked if I'd ever considered writing a book. I laughed when I got the email, literally out loud. I thought it was spam, but it wasn't. By the end of that week, I had a virtual meeting with an editor named Carla. She wore big earrings and said, "Girl, like we'd known each other for years." She didn't ask me to sugarcoat my story. She asked me to tell it. Real, unfiltered, and tender. I signed the contract 2 months later. And that's when fear crept in again. Because writing my story for strangers was one thing. Writing it for print for permanence meant the world could judge it. That she could read it. That my truth would no longer be a whisper in my journal but ink on a shelf. Emma called me the day I announced the book deal. She congratulated me. Said she was proud. Then paused for a long time before asking, "Are you going to write about her?" I hesitated. "I already have," I said. "I just haven't published it yet." There was another pause. Then she said, "Make sure you write your version. Not hers. Not mine. Yours." It was the first time I realized Emma knew. That even she had seen the narrative twisting around us her whole life. And she wanted out of it too. So I wrote. Every night after work, I sat in front of my laptop and tore myself open. Not to bleed, but to be born again. I wrote about the porch. About the casserole plate in my lap. About the way silence echoed louder than screams. About Nana June's snoring and how it used to comfort me like a lullaby. I didn't hold back. And one chapter, chapter 9, I titled, "When Your Mother Chooses to Forget You." It was the hardest to write. Not because it hurt the most, but because I worried people wouldn't believe it. It sounds so unthinkable, doesn't it? That a mother could choose not to raise her child not because of money, not because of danger, but because she simply didn't feel like it. But that's what happened. And pretending otherwise would be a betrayal of every kid who sat waiting for a ride that never came. The book came out 6 months later. The day it launched, I didn't throw a party. I didn't have balloons or champagne toast. I sat alone in my kitchen with a muffin and a copy of my book in my lap. I turned to the dedication page. To the kids who were told they were too much. You were never too much. You were just too vivid for dim hearts. And then I wept. Not for her. For me. For the 13-year-old in unicorn socks who watched her family drive away. For the 16-year-old who baked her own birthday cake. For the 19-year-old who didn't know if she was lovable or just tolerated. But mostly for the woman I had become. The one who chose herself. Again and again. The next twist came when I got an envelope in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. It was a card. Inside, a note in crooked, shaky script. I read your book. I saw myself in it. I wish I hadn't. I'm not asking for a place in your life. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. No name. But I knew who it was from. For a moment I sat still. The world went quiet around me. My tea went cold. My phone buzzed and I ignored it. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I forgave her. Not aloud. Not in a letter. Not even in words. But in spirit. Because carrying that hate was exhausting. Because Emma deserved to heal and I couldn't keep poisoning myself just to hold the moral high ground. Because forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from the chain. I lit a candle that night. Not for her. For me. And for every person who's ever had to learn to mother themselves in the absence of the one who should have. That candle burned for hours. It flickered against the window like a heartbeat, gentle and warm. And in that light, I saw something I hadn't in years. Peace. Not closure, not healing tied up with a bow, but the soft, steady kind that comes from knowing you survived. You survived the ache. The abandonment. The silence. You remade yourself from the pieces someone else discarded. A week after the letter, Emma visited again. She changed. There was color in her cheeks, a lightness in her steps. She'd started therapy too, she said. Working through the guilt, the favoritism, the way she'd been used like a shield between me and our mother. I used to think she loved me more, she admitted, hugging her knees on my couch. But now I think she just needed me more. That's not the same thing. I nodded slowly. I used to think her leaving meant I was unlovable. But I think she just didn't know how to love in the first place. Emma reached out and took my hand. You deserved better, she whispered. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry I didn't fight for you. I squeezed her hand back. You were a kid. We both were. We sat there for a long time, not talking, not crying. Just being. Two sisters with too many years lost between them. Finally beginning to see each other fully. That night, Emma gave me something. It was a photo. An old Polaroid of the two of us, maybe ages 4 and 6, sitting in the backyard with ice cream cones. Our faces sticky, our smiles wild. Back when things were still simple. Back before love came with conditions and choices. I found it in Mom's drawer, she said. I thought you should have it. I framed it and placed it beside my writing desk. Not to remember her, but to remember us. Before everything went wrong. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a panel for young writers on trauma and storytelling. I almost didn't go. Public speaking terrified me, and I wasn't sure I had anything wise to offer. But something told me I needed to be there. The auditorium wasn't huge, maybe 50 people. Most were students, quiet and attentive. When it was my turn to speak, I stepped up to the mic with shaking hands. I looked at the crowd, then at the little note card I had prepared. Then I put it down. And I just spoke. I used to think I was broken, I said. That the reason my mom left me was because something was wrong with me. I thought if I could just be quieter, less emotional, more agreeable, maybe she would have stayed. Maybe she would have chosen me. But I've learned something important. Sometimes people leave not because you're too much, but because they are too little. They don't have the tools, the capacity, or the courage to love you properly. That's not your failure. That's theirs. You don't have to earn love. You just have to exist. That's enough. When I finished, the room was silent for a breath. Then someone clapped. Then more. After the panel, a girl approached me, maybe 16, wearing oversized sleeves and eyes too tired for someone her age. She said, my mom told me I was too dramatic to love. Like, word for word. I thought I was the only one. I hugged her. I didn't have anything profound to say. But sometimes just being there is enough. When I got home that night, there was another letter waiting. It was from Mom again. This one was longer. 5 pages front and back. She talked about her childhood, how her own mother had abandoned her. How she'd learned to bottle everything up. How she thought parenting meant controlling, not connecting. How she resented me for needing what no one had ever given her. She said she realized too late that I wasn't broken, I was brave. Brave for feeling. Brave for asking for love in a house that didn't know how to give it. And then she wrote something I never thought I'd read. I wish I had held you tighter instead of pushing you away. I wish I had learned to love you instead of fearing your softness. If you ever want to talk, really talk, I am here. I know I'm 20 years too late. But I'm here. I didn't respond right away. For weeks I didn't know if I would. Not out of spite, but because I needed to be sure that reaching out wouldn't reopen old wounds or ignite new ones. So I sat with it. I read her words in the quiet. And eventually I wrote back. I told her about my book. About Emma. About Nana June and how much she meant to me. I told her I was doing okay. That I was building something good out of what I'd been given. And I told her I wasn't ready for a phone call. Not yet. But I left the door slightly open. Crack. A chance. And I left it at that. A year has passed since then. We've exchanged maybe 5 letters in total. All handwritten. All cautious. I haven't visited her. She hasn't pushed. It's not a fairy tale ending. But it's a beginning of something. I'm not sure what yet. Emma and I talk every week now. She started dating someone kind. She's studying early childhood education. Says she wants to be the kind of teacher she always wished we had. Me? I finished my second book. It's called Soft Armor, a collection of essays about reclaiming sensitivity in a world that sees it as weakness. And in the back on the acknowledgements page I wrote, to every person who ever stood on a porch waiting for someone who never came, may you walk back inside, light a candle, and choose yourself instead. I still visit Nana June's grave once a month. I bring cinnamon rolls. I sit cross-legged on the grass and tell her all the things she would have loved to hear about the book launch, about Emma's new cat, about Otis the fern, who's somehow still alive. I whisper, I made it, Nana. You were right. I'm golden. And I swear, when the wind rustles the leaves just right, I hear her laughter in the trees. So to the world, to anyone reading this wondering if love skipped over theme, if you've been labeled too emotional, too much, too fragile, let me say this. You are not too much. You were just given too little. And that's not your fault. But your healing? That's yours. And it's beautiful.